Good afternoon, everyone. I know you all are saying good afternoon to me, so I'm waving at you and I know you're waving back. Thank you for joining us for part 2 of our Courageous Conversations, which will be a courageous conversation about race today. We thank you so very much for joining us as we embark upon this venture with 2 well-versed, I don't even know how to describe these gentlemen, but I know they're going to be great. I know they're going to be awesome. I know they're going to take us home. I also know that they are my brothers from the esteemed Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. So that's enough right there. So we're going to give you a courageous conversation today. Please remember that you can go to the chat and ask questions or raise your hand, and we will be able to see your hand. If you need anything from us, if you have a question from the festival committee, you can also put that in the chat box and we will receive your questions. I'm sure that these 2 gentlemen, Mr. Eddie Gresham and Dr. M. Christopher Pugh, is going to do a magnificent job of introducing themselves. You know why? Because they sent me these bios, and I'm telling you, I would be on here to 3 o'clock if I had to go through those bios for you. So you know what? I'm gonna let them tell you a little bit about themselves. They're going to do their own introduction, and I'm going to be grateful to them. So gentlemen, take it away.
Well, I guess I'll start. I'm simply a community advocate, business owner here in Savannah, who is extremely concerned and intensely focused on improving the lives of the members of our community. And I'm here very, very happy to be here to sit down and talk with Brother Christopher Pugh. I want him to go ahead and do his introduction and we'll roll right into the conversation.
Good afternoon, everyone, to Dr. Harrison and esteemed staff at the Savannah Black Heritage Festival. Thank you for your tireless hard work and dedication to our people all over the globe, especially in the Savannah area, but all humans worldwide. My name is Dr. Marion Christopher Pugh. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, product of the DeKalb County school system. I know Brother Gresham knows that all well as well. I am a professor at Georgia Southern University, currently teaching diversity and educational context in the College of Education, where I teach in a pre-professional block for students who are interested in going to the teaching field. So I teach about diversity. It includes the 9 areas of human activity that Dr. Neely Fuller talks about. That includes race, religion, politics, economics, religion, sex, war, education, all of these different topics that are affected by the social construct of race. I am the owner and founder of Manhood Mindset LLC, which is a consulting firm. And what I do is help anyone with a heartbeat that wants to more effectively communicate with people in their area, whether it be family and children, businesses, academic spaces like colleges, university, K-12 institutions, things of that nature. And right now, my main goal is to make sure that I help rebuild a functional family, because I believe our family units are our first political party. And I'm ready to play politics on a holistic scale, not just in the seasonal scale. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh, for that amazing introduction of yourself. I've been knowing Chris since, 2004, 5? And we've been having amazing conversations ever since. To start off, man, you know, I really respect and love the work that you do. I view you as, you know, the next iteration of young Black thought leaders and problem solvers that follow in the line of the Neely Fullers, the Francis Cress Welsings. And I'm really just amazed at your work and what you're doing. if you could, I would like to start off by telling everybody about what you wrote your thesis on.
My dissertation topic was called Humanity in the Black, Applying Counter-Racist Logic with Comedy and Hip Hop. The reason why I chose that topic is because there were a lot of different topics that you can choose from. And ironically, I was attempting to stay away from race at the very beginning, not because I was scared of it. It was because I was literally fatigued and constantly hearing about what race was doing to our people and me individually. What I wanted to try to do was rise above it. When in actuality, when I saw a problem, in order to solve a problem, you can't rise above a problem. You have to attack a problem head on if you want to protect the people that you love. So what I end up doing is every time I tried to go around something, race kept staring me in the face, was like, no, you have to solve me because it's not going to be enough for you to rise above me. This is not about you. This is about what you can do for the people that you don't even know. So when I used that that title, and I found out how race was not necessarily something that was true, but the effects behind something false created so many different realities for so many different people that I had to investigate it for myself. So the biggest question that I had for me and not only my committee members was, what is race? Who invented it? And why is it still a staple in every system that we are exposed to? And when I started investigating and started peeling the layers back more and more and more, I found out the historical aspects of race, the intent behind race, and the words they were using to describe our experience, and not only our experience, but our true identity, or the identity that we've been told about ourselves, actually adds to the system. It's actually feeding the beast instead of starving it. And that's something that I found out. And the things that I'm finding out, they're hard to understand and they're hard to explain. But my job is to make sure I do it regardless how difficult it is. So that's the reason why I chose it. I knew it was going to be a difficult task. I knew it was not fair, but I've never seen fairness in my whole life. So why not dedicate to something that ain't fair? Because you've never seen fairness in the first place.
Man, it's mind blowing, right? To come to that realization and kind of try to think about how you're gonna go through a problem and realizing that I can't go around it. You know, I can't ignore it, and I have to use my mind to really solve this issue. Now that you kind of brought us up to speed on your background as far as your dissertation is concerned, I really like to would talk about what would you say race is, and when were you first introduced to race?
Okay. Race is, first of all, it is a social construct and it's a weapon of mass confusion. So I'll put it like this. Race is, first of all, a sport that deals with mistreatment of specific targeted groups. That is it. Race is a social construct intended to mistreat, abuse, ostracize, and gentrify targeted groups. So even when I hear the word racial equality.
So when you say that, right, because I want to make sure I'm hearing it right, I want to make sure that everybody else is hearing it right. Race is specifically about targeting other groups. It's not just about, hey, you know, I look this way, so I'm in this group. I come from this area, so I'm in this group.
I'm gonna explain what I stumbled upon and what I'm still investigating right now. Race is not about truth. It's about creating a space that people eventually are convinced that is real, even if it's trenched in falsehood. Let me give you an example. And best way that you can expose a game or expose a spell is with a question, not repeating what you've been told. So the best way we're going to counter racism is to use our logic and our intellect and the truth. And the best way to get to the truth is to ask for it. We all know you have not because you ask not, right? So guess what? We're going to have to start asking for the truth and not trying to feel better about the lie we've been told. That is very difficult. And that's what I had to do first, because what I was doing with my dissertation, I was trying to feel better about the lie by trying to hop over it. And it got to the point where I could not do anything but confront it, and I had to stop lying about it. I'm gonna give you a question. that's going to expose the lie. How can we have different skin tones but be the same color? I ask that question again. How can we have the different skin tones but we're the same color? That question should make you say, what in the world does that mean? That question is an easy question, but the reason why it's hard is because we've been so politically correct of unifying under something that's not even ours. And that's hard to acknowledge. And that's a conversation that's very scary, because I told this when I was at Georgia Southwestern not too long ago. I said, when we start talking about race, I would highly suggest we don't talk about race unless we are surrounded by mental health professionals. And the reason why I say that is every time we start talking about race, guess what happens? Everybody experiences an identity crisis. And you need some professionals surrounding people who, listen, you are more than what you look like to somebody else. And we're going to have to start acknowledging that, because our babies are watching. And I'm going to be honest with you, just like I asked you, how can we be the same? How can we have different skin tones but the same color, right? Remember, everybody on this call, remember that conversation when somebody tried to explain to us what race was? And the only thing we remember, we were confused, but we had to do what mama and daddy said. Be home by a certain time, make sure you don't argue with certain folks, but they couldn't tell you why. They just told you what they need you to do. And there's no fault in that, because guess what? It's not a talk, it's a debriefing. What they were letting us know in the best way they could is we are at war. Somebody has declared war on us, and I can't really let you know why, but I'm trying to tell you enough so you can come home alive. So the biggest thing we can do right now is ask a question and don't lie about the answer. How are we having separate skin tones, but we're the same color? What are we really saying? That's the reason why I chose humanity and the black, because guess what? We're more than what we look like to somebody else. If race is a social construct, the question is, who were we before we were told we were black? That's what I want to know. Because that is just as important as our pride in who we are today. Who we were before we were described by someone. Because I'm going to be honest with you. You have to be careful of identifying with a description, because you can lose your definition. I'm going to repeat it. You have to be careful of identifying with your description, because you can lose your definition. Because the people who describe you, they can't define you. That's the reason why they're constantly creating a new description of you every 10 to 20, 30 years, because they can't define you. They can only describe you. And if we don't have enough honesty and courage, because today's conversation is a courageous one, right? The most terrifying thing to do is to tell the truth in warfare. It's dangerous. I put it like this. I was reading a book, and I suggest this book to everyone. It's called not The Miseducation of the Negro, because I have that one. It's The Education of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. He wrote 2 books about the education of the Negro. The miseducation is you will find out the lie. The education of the Negro is how you question the lie to get to the truth. And think about this, what we're doing right now, we have to be honest. Our ancestors some of our ancestors were not allowed the opportunity to congregate and literally and critically think about their well-being with their humanity. Because I put like this, if we could not gather together, and whatever's gonna come out today, because we gotta be honest, right?
Right.
If 2 or 3 gathered in his name, he'll be in the midst. And the reason why they don't want us to be together, because God will show up. That's the reason. So we have to be courageous. If we're going to believe in something, we got to believe in something that is in control of everything, not just what's in control of certain things.
I fully believe in that, brother.
We can't be scared forever.
Fully believe in that. So,
for real. Hopefully I answered your question, because sometimes I get on the roll. Did I answer your question?
It's all good. We just having a conversation right now. And I believe you did. I'm going to ask you the second part of the question. Again, you did answer the question about what is race. I want to know, when were you first introduced to race? And now I want to understand how race is affecting you today.
Okay. I don't remember the first time I was ever exposed to race. I just remember the feeling when race kept popping up. I remember people trying to explain it, but never ever being able to accurately explain it. And I remember the adults that were in charge of my well-being, they were scared too. So if the people who are in charge of my well-being was not secure in what was going on, it naturally embedded some type of random social insecurity. And it wasn't that they told me that I was supposed to be scared. It's just children observe. Children feel before they develop the words to express how they feel. Remember, people either write facts but children throw fits first. Some of the fits that children throw is because the outside environment really is jeopardizing what they've been told versus what they're feeling. If people say, I can protect you, but we see dad and mom scared to death of certain things, that means something is going on that they can't protect me from. So how can I fully put my trust into someone who can't fully protect me? That's some of the distrust that we're feeling in our societies, because our children are terrified and they're looking at terrified parents who can't protect them. And right now, you know, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had the luxury of stuff not going viral. The only way that children will see it is in the newspaper or on the news. Right now, the child will find out some terrorism before the parent will. They'll share it with the parent. Hey, look, there's a public lynching today nationwide. What is this about? And the parent gonna have to be honest that mommy and daddy is speechless right now. And guess what? If the parent can't explain it, how can the child trust them? And it's not that they're doing anything wrong, but we're gonna have an honest conversation that mom and dad is scared too. So if mom and dad is scared too, can we really act clueless that the children are going out trying to find out how to do it on their own? Because they're really realizing that mom and dad, they're limited when it comes down to protection. This is warfare. I just remember getting debriefed. I don't even remember a talk about race. I remember, do this so you don't die. It was not explaining to me about the racial construct. It was telling me, it was debriefing about the attack that was coming down. Hey, if you see this person, you see that person with a badge and a gun, do not run. My mom didn't have no problem with that because I didn't like cardio. But she told me not to do anything strange. You don't have to laugh at that, Edward. But she told me what to do she told me what to do to stay alive. That's the issue. And so now when we put like this, when our parents are giving us a talk about race, we're going to have to be honest about talking to them about survival. If we're talking about survival, we're talking about warfare. It's not just a race talk. We're debriefing a war strategy. That's all it is. And until we say that, we're going to keep giving our children kind of, I would say, vague, politically correct talks. And our children know when we don't know something, but they just know they can't really challenge us because they rely on us for food, water, and shelter. So they're not going to challenge us and say, clearly, you don't know what you're talking about. They're going to pretend that, they're going to, for political reasons, I don't want to make mom and dad mad. I'm at least make them think I understand. But guess who? They're going to go out into the world and try to find an adult that would tell them the truth.
That's very...
I don't know who's listening, but you always want to be the first person to tell your child the truth. You want to be the first person to tell your child the truth.
That is true. That's an interesting concept when you talk about parents having these conversations with their children and the children realizing that the parents are uncomfortable or scared or whatever, right? Because the reason why it's interesting, because the first God in your life is your parents. To children, they don't know anything other than their parent, right? And to see a God-like figure in front of you shaking, like visibly, I don't know, afraid. That's a traumatizing event. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think we really talk about it in that way. But since we went so deep, man, we got real deep real quick, man. I want you to talk about how you use comedy and hip hop to really speak the race in some of the ways that we've seen in the past. But definitely you have your own spin to it, brother. And I love to bust my gut open when we talk.
Now, check this out. One thing that I had to realize was I had to respond to a quote. I know some of us have heard the quote, art imitates life. And one thing I had to realize too is that not only art imitates life, sometimes art is life, and life itself is art. So anytime when we got some artists and people who are expressing themselves, they're literally expressing life in itself. So I would say that art is the bullhorn of life. It's the expression of life. If it's an expression, it is life. You know what I mean? So put like this. Also, too, I found out that self-expression through laughter is very unique to the human experience. I'm not saying joy. I'm talking about specifically laughter. The ability to laugh, to express your joy to the world. And because a lot of people may not understand, laughter has a specific cadence and a specific rhythm to it. I'm gonna give you an example. Has anybody ever walked past a room and all of a sudden you hear a whole bunch of laughter? Doesn't it something about all that laughter makes you want to stop and wonder what in the world is going on? So that laughter is also a signal to the world that something important is going on. So that's why I love comedy so much, because honestly, some of my first teachers were comedy. My mother would sit me down and say, look, I can't bleep out everything, but you're gonna have to watch Richard Pryor. You're gonna have to watch it. You're gonna have to watch it. You know, we had the old VHS, so she would have, my mom would be in front of the TV and she'll have the hand on the knob and just turn it down every 3 to 5 seconds. But she would say, do you understand the concept? Do you understand what he's saying? She would make me sit down and watch the movie The Toy, which literally explained race and explain the politics behind it, about social class, about the wage gap in society. She would make me sit down to do it because a lot of people don't understand that comedy is a curriculum in itself. Hip hop is a curriculum. Hip hop literally is teaching you on rhythm, because I tell everyone, your heartbeat is the most important drum in the world. The reason why we pay so much attention to hip hop is because it's magnetism, it's magnetic. Even if our parents can't stand what they're talking about, they can't deny it's some noise that is attaching something that's going on with their kid. The reason why we're attaching ourselves to that rhythm is because our heartbeat is trying to find something else with a pulse. And there's nothing has more of a life heartbeat, a life force, more deeper than hip hop. And I would argue, you know, hip hop is an extension of the Renaissance, which is jazz. You understand what I'm saying? And most of our expressions come from a place of our humanity. Because put like this, do you think it's a coincidence that we've also had some of the most peculiar and strategic dehumanization campaigns against us, and we also have the most strategic and specific artistic expression? How can you have the most abuse and the most dehumanization based off our current history, our recent history, and have the most elegant, more powerful expression of life at the same time?
Right.
So I just looked at comedy and hip hop as the expression of the human experience. I look at it as art. I look at it as life, because guess what happens? That's how people teach about what's going on in their lives, through comedy and hip hop.
Brother, that's deep, man. That's really deep when you think about the artistic expression that's come out of such pain and such, you know, just wild spaces, you know, such dehumanized spaces, but also very happy spaces too. You know, everything in Black life isn't, you know, doom and gloom. You know, I tell people all the time, man, life is good and we get to live it. You know what I'm saying? We get to live this very unique, very just amazing experience. But in living that experience, a lot of times I think about, you know, how these things are impacting children, right? How race is impacting children, not only just impacting them just as a group, but how does race impact Black manhood, Black womanhood? You know, what are the impacts of that? How does race impact white manhood and white womanhood? What are the things that we see within those groups, right? And how race really impacts those people, and the things you've seen come out of there, some of the dangers of race impacting those people.
I'll go back to the title of my dissertation, which is called Humanity in the Black. Regardless if you have privilege or you got oppression, your humanity is still at stake when you're dealing with race. Right. Race hides your humanity. Even if you benefit from it, it's still hiding your humanity. Because I even asked some of my students who self-identify as white, how are you white? And what were you before you were told you were white? They can't respond either. They don't know. They don't know. And every time I ask that question, they get, and I say, listen, I can challenge you without attacking you because you don't even know what it is. So I'm not attacking you, but I will challenge the words that are coming out of your mouth. Because if you're going to teach our youth, you need to know what you're talking about. How if you're lying with it, put like this, I tell people all the time, having a good heart is not good enough. You have too many good-hearted people that love political correctness, and they are willing to lie to our children just to be loved and liked too. Good-hearted people buckle under the pressure every day. Just
help me understand how that conversation goes, and what are your viewpoints on when you talk to young white kids, you tell them, well, you know, what makes you white? Where are you going with that conversation? What usually comes out of that conversation?
What comes out of that conversation is a appreciation of correctness. Remember, political correctness will feed you, but it will starve you at the same time. Because even if I can eat food, but I feel dumber, or if I feel even more intimidated, but you give me food, I didn't win. You just sustained me. You just elongated my suffering so I can suffer tomorrow. But that doesn't mean you love me because you feed me and you're going to lie to me again. So what they are doing, they are now acknowledging, I don't know what's going on. I've been lied to, even if they've been protecting me because I told them that your identity is a bubble. They're protecting you from something. It's a reason why you got that talk, that program, because I put like this, most of us didn't get a talk, we got a program.
Right.
Race is a program, it's not a talk. You're told to identify. You're not asked, does it make sense? You are told to identify with the adults that told you to identify with it. And all of us are followers. And I tell my students who identify as white, who identify as black, black and white are two colors on a chessboard. That means there's a game being played. Period. Period. So when I ask them that, and I say, look, I need y'all to understand that everything that I ask you ain't about you. That's one of the first things that we deal with. Because one thing about race, all of us are forced to represent a group that didn't even vote for us to be a representative. I'm gonna say that again. Race forces you to represent groups of people that don't even know you. So that's already a violation of humanity anyway. The people on this earth right now didn't invent these terms. So what we're doing is we're just following along and repeating information that we don't understand. I tell people all the time, it's almost like listening to a song on the radio that you can't stand. And everybody, just think about it for a second. Think about a song on the radio they play all the time that you can't stand that song. But you like listening to the radio, so you just let it slide.
Right.
Right? You just let it slide. So now the radio keeps playing the song, and you know, I was driving back and forth Savannah. I'm like, man, I know I've heard this song 3 times in the last 20 minutes. I know I have. Right? So now guess what's happening? When you're programmed, you're also being desensitized. When you are being desensitized, I need everybody to understand this. Desensitization is the prerequisite to dehumanization. I'm gonna say it again. Desensitization is the prerequisite to dehumanization. Anytime when you're receiving something that you're not benefiting from, that means somebody else is. So that means that we're in the same, don't understand these. Self-identify as white, and I asked them.
You're breaking up, brother Pugh. You're breaking up. Give it a second. I don't want us to miss what you're saying.
Hold on.
And if anybody has any questions or anything they want to, you know, comment to, please use the chat box so that I can raise those questions to Brother Pugh or pass along your statements. Dr. Pugh, you good?
It looks good on my saying about my bandwidth. So you clear it all.
It just started breaking up a little bit, but I think we should be able to keep it trucking.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
You sound good now.
Sound good. Okay, good. Thank you. All righty. So basically, how does that conversation go? I let them know that and I asked them this question. I have to ask questions to get their mind prepared to have a conversation about race, because a lot of people don't know how to talk about race. They know how to be offended by it, but they don't know how to talk about it. They do know how to complain about it, to say, this hurts my feelings. They know how to tell you what they feel about race, but they don't know how to tell you what they know about it. So now what I asked them, I said, all right, let me ask you this. I said, raise your hand if you wrote the Constitution. And they look around. I said, all right, raise your hand if you invented the census. They're looking around. I said, all righty. When we talk about the things that are in the Constitution and in the census, stop taking it personal if you didn't write it.
Right.
That's step number one. So I have to give them context, because remember, we live in a politically correct society that's also incorrect.
And you about to start dropping
bombs. You can't have
bombs.
Political correctness and correctness.
Yeah, and you're about to start dropping bombs.
Now right. And I tell them, I said, when I start dropping bombs, come in the plane with me and drop them with me. Don't sit down there and try to dodge the bombs. I'm asking you to come and drop bombs with me. So and also too, and remember those questions. Do you self-identify as being white? Then they say, yeah. And I said, tell me why and prove it. And they get to the point where people don't want to lose money. And I said, for $100. And I said, how much money you got in your cash app? I said, prove to me your skin white right now for all the money in your account. And they get quiet. And I say, look, I'm not asking you to bet money, but I want you to at least acknowledge that you're insecure about what you think you know about yourself. That's it. If you expose the insecurity, you will open the mind. But make sure that that insecurity is not your creation. You're just there to expose it and make sure both of you all are looking at it, instead of you using it to whoop them into shreds. It's not for that, because I don't benefit from making you feel worse. That basically makes the insecure. That's honestly making children who self-identify with a privileged group feel worse is only steroids for misuse and abuse. It's steroids.
You're right.
If you make them feel bad, you basically increase the propaganda that their ancestors gave them. You see how they make you feel bad? You see how they're making you scared? And I'm not telling you to put them on a pedestal. I'm not saying, and I'm not even telling you that their feelings are more important, but you got to understand, race is emotional. It's not even logical. Race is based on emotion. So if you're talking about race, you have to tap into someone's emotions. Go ahead.
I've been having conversations about race for a long time, and one of the things that really kind of woke me up to how I was having the conversation maybe in the wrong way was the fact that when women started to talk to me about sexism and misogyny and things like that, I started to be on the fence about stuff that ain't had nothing to do with me. Like, it wasn't me. And in some ways, some of those women would browbeat you. You know, they would have the conversation in a way where they like they're taking their trauma, right, and now browbeating with you. And it made me look at how I talk to white people about race and racism. And I started saying, like, what's my end goal? Is my end goal to get somebody to understand how their thoughts and what they say out their mouth and what they do impacts my life, regardless of whether they trying to be racist or not, right? Is it my goal to build an ally in this space to say, hey, we're going to address this? Or is it my goal to just simply beat you into submission with your ancestors was evil, this whole system is evil, white supremacy is evil, white racism is evil? What's the goal? Is the goal to move forward, get to something progressive and where we all can come to a space where we get equity, where we get equality, or is the goal just to beat you across the head with it?
Well, I respond what I tell everyone, that this is my personal thing. Equality ain't good enough.
I agree.
Equality ain't good enough, because guess what you're doing? You're still measuring yourself to somebody who still had to dehumanize you in order to get their space in society. Equality ain't good enough. So we're going to have to raise our standards across the board. Now, what I mean by that, you said, all right, so how do I even approach this? One of the best things you can do to win the battles that are yours is recognize the battles that have nothing to do with you. One of the best ways you can do to win your specific battles is to recognize the battles that have nothing to do with you. We are not here to educate the world. We are not here to convince the world that what they're doing is wrong. I'm gonna let you know this. I had to stop using the word fairness because I had never seen the word fairness in history documented. Like, you know what, in this year, everything was fair. It don't exist.
Right.
So I'm not telling people not to have, see, this is the thing. I had to stop looking for fairness and start looking for functionality. I need to be functional, because guess what happens? If I sit up here and try to have all these external expectations on people who have historically decided to dehumanize certain groups, I have a certain amount of time on this planet, and a lot of people don't know when it's time to go. But the time that I'm going to invest in trying to figure out what's going on is figuring out what I'm supposed to do while I'm here, and not let anybody deter me because they've been miseducated about what I look like. Some things are a journey, and some things are a distraction. Just because you're, put like this, I tell people all the time, just because you're strong doesn't mean you have to go around lifting things that don't belong to you. This race thing is heavy. This race thing is one of the heaviest things that you can ever experience. And if you don't understand what you're doing with it, you can take on things that have nothing to do with you, and you can ignore everything that has something to do with you if you don't know what you're doing. So this is what I tell people. Find out the truth. Are you telling the truth? Because you can't find truth if you're not telling it. If I put like this, the things that I want in my life, I have to speak it and produce it if I want to see it. If it put like this, it got to the point that we talked about this in our undergrad years. We used to talk about all the things that we want to change in our community. And it got to the point we were talking so much that we had no more energy to say something. We just went into it. You went straight into your community and started doing everything you said. And I said, I'm finna start mentoring. You were like, just take some water with you. You understand what I'm saying?
And a ham sandwich.
Because I put like this. We both decided, and we didn't have a conversation about it. We just both decided we were going to stop looking for fairness, because we started discussing fairness way more than we was working. And I remember this conversation we had in 06. We were like, bro, it looks like this stuff ain't gonna change. What we gonna do? I said, I don't know yet, but I'm gonna do something. You handle Savannah, I'm gonna do the borough. Then we just split off, and we just started working. We started looking for functionality and got rid of the fairness, because we never seen it, and I don't think it's a reality.
And team,
put like this. How about this, y'all? What if we found out that equality and fairness ain't good enough? What we gonna look for now? I want to look for opportunities for greatness. I want to look for a functional family. I want to look towards children in our community and see them so confident, so when they get attacked in the school system, they don't respond with their emotions, they respond with intellect. Because this whole racism is based off emotion. That's the reason why they're antagonized every day. I want to imagine a world when they tell our child that you're a bad child, I'm going to bring you to ISS. I want our children to be like, is this the school to prison, the pipeline that I've been reading so much about? Instead of get out of my face. Right. No, I'm serious. Instead of get out of my face, Miss Wilson, ain't fair. You always bother me. I want our children to know, historically, I found out that the racial classifications literally took our humanity out of constitutional law. Is this happening because you keep sending me down the hallway? Please advise. I want our children to be so in tune, because right now, looking for fairness makes them emotional. Guess what our children do every day? It ain't fair.
You're right, team.
It ain't fair,
real quick,
Mr.
man.
Chris. It ain't fair. And I tell them no. Okay.
I think we got a question. Miss Dorsey, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you so much. This is awesome. You guys are really getting deep. What do we tell our children when they ask questions about why are there so many movies being made about slavery and, just showing Blacks in a way that is subservient? And then the second question is, it's pretty much on the same line, but you see a lot of commercials and sitcoms now that are showing interracial relationships, or like Black women with white men, as if it's a slow programming. I'm concerned about that. I'd like to hear your views, both of y'all. on that.
Well, I'll tell you that is something that I'll be quite honest with you. Me and Mr. Pugh have talked quite extensively about. When it comes to the movie things, I think that there's a array of movies that are coming out. I think that all of them are important. I won't lie to you. It's important for our children to be able to visually see, you know, what actually happened, right? How people were in a certain space because people did this to them, how we fought out of it, and the various stages of the fights, right? So we just had a movie come out about Fred Hampton, Judas and the Black Messiah, right? Most people did not know that the government killed this man. There's no question about it. You know, how people be like, oh, well, the government killed Malcolm X and Martin. No, the government and the Chicago Police Department killed this man who was a scholar at a very early age, who graduated top of his class in high school, a standout athlete, who created a breakfast program in high school before the Panthers. You know, so it's like, you know, we have to have those movies. You know, the movies for me, and man, Dr. Pugh says this to me all the time, and I believe he gets it from Neela Fuller, but all problems are solved through questions and answers, right? And the movies allow for you to ask the questions, right? So when I watched that movie, I started researching. I knew about Fred Hampton. I read books, and I consider myself a historian, right? Of some sorts, right? And I started to research. I'm like, man, this is wow. I didn't even know anything about this. Or you see a movie about a rebellion, right? And it ain't always aligned the way it really was. But then you start asking questions because we got Google in our hands 24/7. There's no reason for us not to know. When we see certain depictions of us, right, that we may be, some of us may be tired of seeing. You know, I can imagine some people like, hey, I don't want to see another slave movie, right? But there's a generation of people coming behind us that ain't never seen a slave movie. It's gonna be the first one they saw, you know? So I know I might have went out to the level of that, but I think that each type of film that we get is important. When it comes to the imaging that we're seeing around relationships, you know, that can be a dangerous thing, you know, if not put in context, if we're not having conversations with our children, what they're viewing. It's like when I say I never see myself on TV. Black people used to say that, you know, there were no black people on TV. Well, that meant something, right? And when you are constantly seeing certain things, I think that influences children in spaces too. But I'm gonna let Dr. Pugh step in on that one because he has the degree. You on mute.
I will respond. Yeah, I got you. I'll respond to this question with a statement or a quote. Any negative narrative gone unchecked too long becomes a spell. I'm gonna say it again. Any negative narrative gone unchecked too long becomes a spell. Remember, white and black are two teams on a chessboard. All right? It's a reason why our narrative is about gloom and doom when it comes down to slavery. And I'm gonna tell you why. Remember, a lot of us have never been educated. We've been programmed to a certain extent. I have some information here. I always ask this to my students who self-identify as white too, right? Have y'all ever heard the narrative that certain people from other ethnicities, nationalities, especially from Europe, have y'all ever heard someone say, my folks came over here with nothing? Have y'all ever heard of that story before?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
How can you come over here with nothing? How can you come over here with nothing and own everything? I'm gonna tell you why. A lot of the people may not understand there's a difference between an indentured servant and a slave. You know what the difference is? The title. Title and status. The labor is still the same. An indentured servant and a slave, they were out in the same places, but the titles changed when they wanted to start the hierarchy. That's the reason why you only see slave stories that have us in it, because it's a narrative. It's not necessarily history. I'm gonna show you a book that I have in my class. This book is called White Cargo, white cargo. Guess what this book is about?
White
European slaves in the British colonies in the Americas. White slavery.
Why don't we
Written
ever,
by people from Europe.
Dr. Pugh, why don't we ever see a movie about white slavery in America? I mean, it's clear that when you start to talk about those things, that some white people know and they love to bring it up. What we need this, somebody need to do the movie.
Well, I put it like this. I'm gonna say the statement again. Any negative narrative going unchecked becomes a spell. Remember, we're living in an American dream. The dream includes making sure I don't never feel bad. Some of them are embarrassed by that history of their people coming over with nothing. If you come over with nothing, that means you got to work for somebody to get shelter and food. Doesn't that sound like sharecropping and slavery? You can't come put like this. I always ask them, if you come over for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that suggests that you didn't have it. So if you go to the grocery store looking for milk, don't that tell me that you didn't have milk at home? If you go across a sea, if you go across an ocean to look for life, liberty, and pursuit of property, don't that suggest you probably didn't have it?
Dr. Pugh, you're making
So
great
guess what
points,
happened?
man.
Go ahead.
You're making great points. We just had a sizzling hot question come through, and I don't want to cut you out. I want you to finish that statement, but I definitely want to get this question into you. You ready for the question? You want to finish?
All right, I want to. Yeah, ask me to answer the question, but I wanted to answer her question about the movies and the interracial.
Finish. That's what I'm saying. Finish, and I
Okay.
want you to know I got a question.
I'll condense it. Basically, what you're saying, anything that's in a movie or a commercial or a TV show, you question the editor. Question the editor. Everything you're seeing on a movie or a TV screen has been edited and it has been approved. Don't question the message all the time without questioning the editor. Whoever approved it has the main answer for you. Because the only thing we can do now, if I didn't put that out, I can only speculate, which is also confusing. I can give you my opinion, but I'll never be able to give you the answer. So I will tell you this, anytime we want to know the intent behind something, question the editor. The editor controls what you're able to see in the movie theater, TV screen, Hulu, all of that stuff. Question the editor. But the question is way more important. I'm glad you asked it here because we have to question the person that put it out because everything that's edited is edited with intent. You got to ask them what was the intent behind it. And you don't have to be upset about it, but you need to know the intent so you can educate your children. And right, the next one, no, that was it. That was it. Go ahead.
Okay. And that may be producers. And maybe we need to question the producers in that space. But so the question was, did writing your dissertation on humanity in the Black cause you any problems? Did you have to prove your points over and over? Whew! I'm gonna turn my screen off on this. Let me just say this. You go ahead. I think I'm safe now.
All right. Well, I'll answer that with a question first, and I'll get into the response. We call different institutions predominantly white institutions, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think that I saw when I proved, what do you think I saw or had the experience when my whole dissertation proved that they were not white in the first place?
I know, so I'm gonna let Dr. Harris respond.
I did ask that question and I asked it for a reason. And I'm not part of this panel, it's the two of you, but I just want to share a story and it's going to be very short. When I started my doctoral program, it was because of a young African-American male who came into the city of Savannah to find some African-American people to join this predominantly white community of scholars to work on a doctoral program. And we learned that there in the United States of America at that point, it was only 0.5% of African Americans who had received their doctoral degrees. So that empowered me. And we were told what we were up against. We were talked about, we were discussed to say that we would never finish the program. Many white professors who most did not believe in us, some who trusted and believed that we were going to finish it. With 7 of us, African-American women from Savannah, Georgia, we decided that we were going to show them better than we could tell them. So when they said, you're going to finish this in 4 years, we laughed behind their backs and said, you really think so? It took us 2.5 years. And we worked day and night just to show them that we were better than what they expected us to be. And because we were 1, Black, 2, we were women, and you thought we weren't going to do it. So we were in their very first doctoral class, educational leadership class for this university. So I just wanted to share that. And that's why I asked you that question, because I know what a hard time I had.
I'm glad you brought that story through. I'm glad because that needed to be heard, you know, and it's a good precursor to Dr. Pugh's story. And I'm gonna let him give his story. I'm gonna back out because I just went to a lot of schools.
Well, I will tell you this, Dr. Harris, everything you said was spot on and then some, because I know it's some things that you could tell us that you condensed. I'm pretty sure you saw it all right? But one thing I want to tell everybody, what I'm about to say, I want y'all to hear me clearly and take out what you think you may already know about the situation. Because what I'm about to tell you may challenge what you think you already know, all right? I graduated from what people call predominantly white institution. I'm gonna be honest with everybody on the call. I don't care who hears it, because sometimes you need to hear it. We need to be pro-truth before we pro what we look like. I'm gonna say it again. If you stand for truth, it don't matter, because that truth will always set you free. The issue is set you free from what? And set you free from whom? And I'm gonna tell you, the reason why I'm telling you this is because in my doctoral program, with the stuff that I was doing, my #1 fighters, my dissertation chair is described as a middle-class white male. The people that gave me the most hell look like me. All right? And some of us know it, because let's think about it. When we go to corporate America, it ain't the skin, it's that spirit that get it in. We know it. It's like, let's be honest. Let's gloves off. We're not dealing with skin tone. We're really dealing with mediocrity.
There we go.
Gloves off. When you are great, fear plays a major part in corporate America. Corporate America literally mean corpse, mean dead. Anytime when you bring life in the cemetery, somebody gonna think something wrong with you. That's the reason why when you go into corporate America, you gotta wear dark suits, black and blue. The same color as a dead body. So when you bringing in life in there, the main thing they're gonna wanna do is try to take life out of the life forces coming in the graveyard. And it's about mediocrity. It's about insecurity, not always skin tone. Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Uniting under skin tone only will make you unite with your enemy. We are too intelligent just to act off of emotions. The most hell came from mediocre people from all different skin tones, not one. Mediocrity scares people. If you are great, if you're the children of the Most High God, you have enemies. You're not gonna have fairness. The book you think you believe in lets you know it ain't fairness.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you ready for warfare. Period. So us thinking that we're in a kumbaya world, the person that we're trying to emulate lets you know. If you think what they did to me was something, wait till they do something to you. If you think what they did to me was something, and then make it and put like this. When I read that, I said, hold on, I'm gonna do greater things than you, but we worship you. He said, no, you're gonna do greater things than I will. I'm like, hold on, that's a little backwards. If I do greater things, that means something worse. And he was just like, yeah, have at it. and I'm not trying to make fun of it, but that's what comedy does. Think about this. We're laughing about something very, very tragic, right? Laughter is life. You got to breathe life into this thing, because if it's all doom and gloom, you will automatically go to a side. You will pick a side before you even know what the sport is. I need everybody to understand this. Race is about confusion first. It will make you choose a team before you know what the sport is. I'm asking everybody to do this. Before you choose a side, you need to find out what's being played first. I don't tell people what to identify with. I just let them know that they may not know what they're talking about. That's all I do. I never tell somebody what they need to do. I'm just asking them to use this brain before you use your skin tone to make a decision. Because I promise you, if you try to make life-altering decisions based off what you look like, your children will be confused, period. Because I'm gonna tell you this, our children seeing us uniting with people we just got finished dogging out.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't respect us for it. They do not respect us for it. Y'all gotta hear me. They don't respect us because they see us lying, they see us running, they see us quivering, they see us going back to a place where we're getting abused every day. They see it. So how can they trust us when they know we're terrified of being ourselves? It's you, Brother Gresham.
Man, brother,
Hold on. Can I say one more thing real quick? Last thing.
Absolutely.
Dr. Harris, you mentioned something about proving them wrong when they did this, and I want to compliment you on that. I think that's so strong, but I want to compliment this with a balanced approach in addition to what you said, because I think it's extremely important to go against the grain. But I want everybody to hear me loud and clear. We're gonna have to work to a point, because I know our struggle is real, but we are more than our circumstance. What you went through, Dr. Harris, was circumstantial. We want to be very careful of identifying with our circumstance, because sometimes we can lose our identity in our circumstance. And I'm gonna tell you why, Dr. Harris, I did the exact same thing. My close friends do the exact. Somebody tell us you can't do it, guess what we do? We'll go in the trenches and make sure we do it, prove them wrong. I want y'all to hear something. And I say this with love. Anytime we're trying to prove something to someone, that's also a level of seeking approval. We got to be careful about it. Because because think about this, some of the things ain't our battle. I'm gonna ask everybody a question, rhetorical. Be careful of trying to prove you're great to mediocre people. I'll just leave it at that. Be careful of trying to prove your greatness to mediocrity. They already know you're great. That's the reason why they want you to come down to their level and sweat and cry and bleed to death. They need you to have eye to eye to come down to compete, because I'm going to be honest with you. Race is like a track. Let's look at race like a racetrack. If they know people are greater than them, they had to create a race so they can see eye to eye to you. We have to be careful running races with people we ain't even got to compete with. Please know that. Brother Gresham, that's on you.
Brother, thank you for bringing that home, man. I know that probably everybody on this call at some point has felt like they had to prove something to somebody, had a chip on you. So
I did too.
I have, I know I have, and I know what kind of mental space that puts you in. It's not healthy. You know what I'm saying? And when you're going through it, and accomplish it, you feel really, really good. But in light of what you say, I started thinking about it. I was like, man, what I felt like in those times where I was being told something against what I knew about myself. You know what I'm saying? When you're being, when people have shaped you in their head and other people's head about who you are, right? And then you feeling like I got to prove that I'm not that. No, I don't. I actually don't. You know what I'm saying?
No.
If I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it because I said I'm gonna do it, but it don't have nothing to do with you. And I won't give you that kind of power with me. So I appreciate that. And Dr. Harris, I know you don't. I know you know that that's not any knock towards you.
Lord no. Lord no.
Mental health space of what happens with us when people say certain things. I don't know if you wanted to say anything in response.
And can I clarify this right before Dr. Harris speaks? I want to be clear on this because sometimes when I speak, it comes out in so different ways, but I don't mind clarifying. Dr. Harris, what I was saying, what you did was one of the greatest things you did, because you have no idea who was watching you, who was motivated to keep going. Because you got certain people that will hear that and then they will transfer or they will drop out. So what you did was way more powerful than anybody can really fathom. What I'm saying is we got to be careful of exerting our energy towards mediocre people, because mediocre people only weaponize their perception on us. They can't compete with us. They can only perceive us. And we have to, and honestly, I'm talking to all of us about it. We are more than what they need us to be. Yep. Dr. Harris, the floor is yours.
Oh, so you all are finished?
Oh, no. But if you want us to finish, we can be finished.
Well, we're going to wind up in just a little bit, but I just wanted to respond to something you said. And I don't feel bad at all of anything that you've said. What I want you to understand is that, yes, we were trying to prove a point, but we were grown women, smart, big, bad, and bodacious women. So it wasn't long before they knew who we were, and they appreciated who we were, because we had a work ethic that they could not diminish. They couldn't tear it apart. They could do very little with us, but appreciate and respect us. And that's what we wanted. And that's what we received. So still today, they look back and ask us questions and want us because we were the first. And while they challenged us, we challenged them. So it was great. All the way around, it was great.
I love it, man. And I know Dr. Pugh agrees, because we talk about this all the time. Nobody outworks Black women. That is just hands down. Nobody works hard. And I don't mean that from a, like working hard to break your bone, working your fingers down hard is some grand thing. I just mean, like, when Black women set their mind to do something, I've never seen anybody work harder than Black women, and in the workplace, in the community, and anything. So I commend you again, Dr. Harris. I got one more question, Brother Pugh, and then we're gonna wrap it up. What are some of the things that you learned since writing Humanity in the Black that have been impactful, right? So you wrote this thesis, you had a certain mind frame, you had gathered all this information. What are the new things that have popped up in your research and your continued learning? What are some of the new things?
Well, I'll put it like this. One of the things I've learned is to question, if it was illegal for us to read, what are we reading? If it was illegal for us to read at one time, and all of a sudden it was illegal, and all of a sudden it was mandatory for us to read, Reconstruction was not only for buildings, it was for mindsets. It was for making sure that generations were separated from elders, and to make sure that instead of the elders passing down the generational education, that you went to someone who wanted you to believe a certain thing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling anyone that learning a trade or learning how to function in society was bad, but history affects the mind. If you don't know who you are, you'll end up not doing enough and too much at the same time. So you can't, you know what I mean? So for history and for education to be mandatory after it was illegal, you got to question the intent behind all of it. Because when we have found out how much we've been miseducated when it comes down to who we really are and who they are and what has really happened, I promise you this, my doctoral degree proved how much I didn't know. I tell people that all the time. It proved how much I didn't know. That's the reason I'm gonna tell people this all the time. My favorite teachers are children. Children don't know how to lie for political gain yet. They know how to lie for chips and recess, but they don't know how to lie for political gain.
Well, mine
You know
do.
what I
Hold
mean?
on now that my these children here,
No,
boy,
dog.
they will have you. Are you hungry, Dad? So they can. You want some candy, Daddy?
But no.
So they can get some candy.
Exactly.
Now, keep going. I'm sorry.
Exactly. But no. But seriously, what I have learned so far is our humanity is the key, not our race. Our humanity is the key, not our race. If somebody can convince you to compete with them, they are banking on you finding out not who you are. They just need you to think you are who you are compared to them. And I'm gonna be honest with you. We need to find out who we were when we compared to no one. That's what's going to help us understand exactly what we're dealing with. Because you got to understand this: race is a game. It is a sport. It is not an identity. You got to ask yourself. Now, I tell, like we said on the phone yesterday, people need to look up J.F. Blumenbach and Francis Galton. People made up these categories, and these categories come from the eugenics movement. The eugenics movement funded and actually influenced your whole your census categories. These are based off eugenics, period. We're not even considered from original people in the United States Census. And until people see that, we'll still be trying to convince each other about something we don't really know anything about.
And you put a link in the chat group for everybody if they wanted to go and check out what you're talking about as far as the census is concerned.
Right.
And there's a movie, and I'll type it in the chat box. It's called Schooling, the World.
Schooling the World, okay.
If anybody ever, I don't know if anybody, if you have, raise your hand, have seen the movie Schooling the World. It's a documentary, actually. It really talks about how whiteness spread around the world as this concept through schooling, through like educating the savageness out of Indians, right? You know, kill the savage to keep the Indian, that type of phrasing, you know what I'm saying? And how schooling was to manipulate your mind to literally thinking and being like this, you know, they call America a melting pot, but it's really not. You know, it's a space where you assimilate. You know what I'm saying? So schooling was used as a way to assimilate people into whatever corporate greed needed. You know, whether it be more workers, right? So now you go from living out here on your native land to coming into this space to get a job, and then you don't even respect your elders when you go back. You don't respect the culture no more. You don't respect because you learned a different thing. You know, you're like, hey, why are we going to get water out of why don't we just get some pipe in here? You know, why are we cooking like this? We just bring electricity here, we cook this way. You know, and now all of a sudden your elders can't tell you anything because you just got a different type of knowledge. Now that you got more knowledge, you have different knowledge than what they have, and you don't respect that. So check out that, Brother Pugh. Are there any books that you would like to recommend to the group to check out on race relations, Black people, white people, Asian people, anybody?
I would highly suggest everyone to go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. That is Neely Fuller Jr.'s work. He has a book about codified response to racism. It literally lets you know that the power of your brain to ask questions and seek answers is the only thing you can do and the only thing you have to do to combat racism. Racism is based off confusion, it's based off malicious intent, and it's based off warfare. So in order to basically combat this thing, we have to honestly, first step is to stop lying and to make sure that we don't confuse anyone by anything we really don't know about. Second book is the ISIS Papers by Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing literally broke this down to the elements when it comes down to race. I think if children understand this book before they get to the 6th grade, they will not be suffering from the school to prison pipeline because they will understand the psyche behind the school to prison pipeline, instead of just being responsive to it, they will know how to clog up those pipelines. They will know how to do it. Miseducation of the Negro must be a mandatory family book. I think we need to start going back to family books for our families, where to the point where the family discussion should have a book of the week or the book of the month. To the point, even if the babies ain't reading it, they're hearing the parents read it to them. And then not only this parents, make sure they respond to what they think about it. It's not, can they say, did you learn anything? Yes. We have to stop asking our children yes or no questions. Why? Because the critical thought process is suffering more than anything. You don't want to ask yes or no questions to the most distracted group of children the world has ever seen. The critical thought process has to be started in the home first. So when they go to the education system that is based off targeting certain groups, they will know how to critically think before they emotionally respond. We need a family book session that needs to start sooner than later if you're not already doing it. Last but not least, the Autobiography of Malcolm X. I think we need to have an honest conversation about the Autobiography of Malcolm X. That book was it was so crucial to me. My mother gave me this book and made me read it in a week. And I didn't like her for the whatever reason when she first gave it. But after I read that book, our relationship got closer. And she started giving me poems and everything. She gave me poems like If by Rudyard Kipling. Like, even if you don't want to read books, there are poems out there from all of our people, all of our ancestors that have moved on. They've given us enough game film and game plans within their writings and in their movies. There's so many different messages all over the place. If we know how to look at them, not with an entertainment lens, but an intellectual lens. Remember, intellect and intelligence deals with intel. Intel is based off warfare. So we have to look at it to prepare us to go out into the world with it, not just sit back and eat popcorn.
Brother Pugh, thank you.
Those are the three.
I appreciate it, brother. I put those things in the chat group. Last thing I would add, man, when dealing with your kids, man, don't shut them down. When your kids are questioning and asking things, they're doing that because they are using those critical thinking skills that we're gonna want them to have later on. When you shut that down, right? When you start telling them no, or just because I said so, or you don't think about what they ask and provide back a thoughtful response, it teaches them that they don't have to be thoughtful. They can just go off their emotions. They can just, oh, I'm having a bad day, like, because that's what mama did. That's what daddy did. He was just having a bad day, so he went off his emotions. Really, really allow for your children to be full human beings, ask questions. At the end of the day, it's going to be your decision anyway, so that they develop those skills that they need to be able to question things in the future. Questioning is a good thing, and that's the only way we're going to get to the answers in to these problems. Thank everybody for joining. I'm going to give it back to Dr. Harris to close out.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm just enthused. I really enjoyed the conversation. It was wonderful. I'm so sorry that we didn't have more in the group today, but guess what? All of you who are on, just go share some stuff. Just go share some stuff. And I want to just piggyback off of what these gentlemen talked about with the children. Those of you who have children that are your biological children, or those that are not your biological children, but you just have a bunch of kids, talk to the children. I can't tell you what a time they are having. There are no words for what they're going through right now. And yes and no is not going to give them the answer they need, because they're hurting. They are so involved and so engaged in this pandemic. They're suffering. They don't know what to do, a lot of them. And it's a mental issue for some of them. You may not think so, but I'm telling you that it is. And you need to have some courageous conversations with the children. Even if they're not yours, you need to have a courageous conversation with them to let them know that this is temporary and that you love them, you care for them. Ask them what it is you can do for them. Talk to them, play with them, laugh with them, love with them, just have fun with them, so they won't become so depressed that they never want to go back to school, because that is what we're gearing up for. Some of those kids are never going to want to go back to school. and they're going to be afraid. And so we need to start talking to them. But I appreciate you guys so much, my brothers. I really appreciate you. You said so much that just, my heart, it's just beating really fast. And I really appreciate you. And I hope that we can come together again sometime soon for the Black Heritage Festival. During this festival, this is what we should be talking about some of the time, so our children can learn. And so adults can learn also, because we don't know everything about race, but we need to know something about race. So I really appreciate you, and this is recorded, so some people can go back and look at it later if they couldn't come on this afternoon. It's a lot going on. And so we hope that they will go back and look at it. I appreciate you so much. I love you so much. I want you all to take care. I want you to be safe, and I want you to wear those masks, okay?
Dr. Harris, real quick, did it go out from the Black Heritage Facebook page?
Yes, it was in the brochure. And well, next time we just have to do a little bit more.
Okay.
Their social media and just trying to get our people involved.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Dr. Harris, for having us and trusting us with this conversation.
Thank you all. Yes. Don't go away, okay? All right.
Got you.
Take care.
All right. All right.
Thank you, audience. Thank you, everybody who's on the call. We really appreciate you spending time with us today. And don't forget about us. We'll be back next year, bigger and better than ever, we pray. And we hope that you will be around to help us get through another. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wonderful job. Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay.
Thank you.